triple-negative breast cancer is a type of breast cancer that is not estrogen positive, not progesterone positive, and it's not HER2 positive. And hence the word triple, because it is negative for 3 markers that are present in some combination or another in 85% of all breast cancers. We know that when we biopsy breast cancer from one setting to another setting, in about 20% of cases there's change in markers. And the markers that we test for breast cancer, they also have to make sense. So if you see somebody, a tumor that is a very high grade, it's dividing at a very rapidly fast rate, but the other markers that we test don't go hand in hand with that, then we have to question ourselves. Was the test done appropriately? Should we repeat it? We often will repeat markers that even were done by us, because if we don't feel very comfortable with it, because that makes a lot of difference. Having the right diagnosis is the key to cure. Sometimes it requires another biopsy, and I tell women that it's absolutely critical. We don't want to start treatment based on a hunch. We have to be sure what we are treating. I wouldn't say it's easy to misdiagnose. It is the lack of understanding resides where the knowledge of what qualifies as a positive for estrogen, what qualifies as a positive for progesterone, were confirmatory tests done for HER2. Because it's triple negative, you have to be negative for all 3. So were all the right steps taken to derive at that negative status? And sometimes a step here or there might be missing. These women tend to be younger at the time of diagnosis compared to counterparts that get hormone-positive breast cancer. And often some of them haven't completed having their families, and that's important to them. The challenge is the standard chemotherapies that we use to treat all forms of breast cancer are toxic on ovaries and fertility, and may impact these women's ability to have a child down the line. Once a diagnosis of triple-negative breast cancer is made, and especially if it's in a setting of a genetic mutation like BRCA1 and 2, there are chemotherapy regimens that are not that harsh on the ovaries that can be used. And I think this is what was recommended for Leslie, and it gave a very good response in terms of the treatment of the cancer. So it didn't compromise the care for the cancer, but still leaves her the option to be able to have a child down the line. The women who have triple-negative breast cancer tend to have lesser cure rates from this cancer as compared to women who have hormone-positive breast cancer, that's estrogen or progesterone positive, or women who have HER2 positive breast cancer. And one might ask why that is. And the primary reason is because if we just look at how we define this type of cancer, we define it by what it is not. And when you define something by what it is not, it gets harder to treat. Once we know what it is, then we can develop better treatments for those types of cancers. Like for HER2 positive breast cancer, we know that the HER2 part drives that cancer. So there are lots of drugs that can target that HER2 part and have tremendously improved outcomes for that cancer. For triple-negative breast cancer, we're still working on figuring out what drives this cancer. And it is not just one cancer. We put it in one basket because it is triple negative, stains negative for those 3 things, but in reality it's actually little subtypes within itself, which makes it a little bit harder to study, which makes it a little bit harder to come up with new drugs. One thing that has been a challenge in keeping us behind in progress for this type of cancer, it's the lesser common type of breast cancer. So we have to gather a lot of women with this type of breast cancer to study it better, especially if we now know that in a lesser common type of breast cancer, there are even lesser common subtypes. So with this registry, we're inviting women that have this type of breast cancer to be part of this research registry, where they provide blood specimens, tumor specimens, clinical information about the cancer that they had, the treatment they received, and the outcome of that treatment. And this helps us study the cancer better. It helps us understand why certain women have a good response to regimen A, and certain women have a good response to regimen B of chemotherapy. Why for certain women the cancer comes back very rapidly within the first year, and for certain women it stays gone for 3+ years. These are some of the questions we're asking. This registry has been very well endorsed by the women in the community and the providers, and has over 800 participants. Approximately 120 women participate, new women participate in it every year. And with the help of this, we're now devising newer trials to study newer drugs, targeted drugs for women with this type of cancer. In certain cases, more than 800 samples, because women are providing blood at more than one time point. And the hope is down the line, some of these specimens can be used to understand the biological differences between different types of triple-negative breast cancer, and tie those to response or lack thereof, tie some of these markers to why certain cancers come back and others don't, even if they don't have a good response to chemotherapy. We have several clinical trials for women with triple-negative breast cancer. Registry is one of them for women that don't need active treatment right now. And then we have trials that are looking at different types of chemotherapy delivery in women who need chemotherapy before going to surgery. We have clinical trials for women who've already had surgery and didn't have very good response to chemotherapy that they got before surgery, and these are trials with vaccines and immune therapy. And then we also have trials with newer targeted drugs in women that have had a recurrence after the first diagnosis of triple-negative breast cancer and now have stage 4 disease. So we have 2 such trials looking at targeted drugs in combination with chemotherapy. My advice for women in that situation is to seek out clinical trials, to seek out second opinions, make sure that everything was done for appropriate pathological evaluation, make sure that they've had genetic testing if they qualify for that, because women who have a genetic mutation with triple-negative breast cancer may have unique treatment options available that are not available for other women. And it's important to look at current research and find what fits the women best. We have used the same drugs to treat this breast cancer for 20+ years, and these are the same drugs that we use to treat hormone-positive breast cancer, which is not triple-negative breast cancer. So this cancer perhaps needs a more tailored approach than what we typically use for general breast cancer. I think we still have to make a lot of progress for those changes to arrive in clinic for every woman to have access to it. Till then, I think clinical trials are the way to go. One thing I tell all my patients with triple-negative breast cancer is, even though this subtype has an outcome that's not as good as other breast cancer subtypes, but even having said that, with standard chemotherapy, about 70 to 80% of these women are still cured. So when we say it's not as good, is because we're not at 100, but it's not a death sentence by any means. And I tell women to not go on internet and look up triple-negative breast cancer, because all you see is data and literature that will discourage these women, and it is a curable form of breast cancer for a large majority of them. We just aren't at that 95% that we would like to be.
I had just had a baby, and when he was about 2 months old, I found a lump, but I wasn't that concerned because I had a lot of changes with my body with pregnancy and post-pregnancy, and so I tried not to think about it for a little while. I do have an extensive family history of breast and ovarian cancer on my dad's side. So a lot of women have had ovarian cancer, breast cancer. My dad's mother, my grandmother, died of breast cancer when my dad was young. And so I've always known that I should be on top of breast health, and that would be something I would need to be concerned about. But I sort of thought later in life, like when I was 40. And so after a couple months of just thinking about this lump, and it wasn't going away when other parts of my body were starting to go back to normal, I decided to just go in for a breast exam with my OB and just sort of get it out of my mind and not worry about it anymore. And so I went in and had an exam. He felt a lump and instantly told me to go across the street, get a mammogram, ultrasound, and a biopsy. And so even then I wasn't too concerned because I was only 30 and didn't really think that it could be cancer. And then a couple days later they called me and told me that it was cancer. They had told me I was hormone positive and laid out the chemo plan and my plan for surgery. And in the meantime, I also went to the University of Kansas Cancer Center for a second opinion. When I went there, I met with Dr. Khan first, and after he looked at my pathology and looked at everything, he said I was actually triple negative, which is, there's a big difference on how you treat it. Triple negative breast cancer is a much more aggressive breast cancer, and that means, triple negative means that it's hormone negative. There's no estrogen, progesterone, or HER2 in the tumor, and the tumor is not fed by hormones, and it is a more aggressive cancer. What was interesting is at the other facility, the medical oncologist said that it was hormone positive, and she showed me the chemos and the hormone replacements that I would be on for years after diagnosis, which would mean that I wouldn't be able to have another baby. When I met with Dr. Khan, one of the first questions he asked me in my first appointment is if we wanted to have another baby, and with all the other things we were thinking about at that time, that wasn't even something that had come in our heads yet, but we said, yeah, I mean, most likely, yeah, we want to have another one. So he instantly set us up with an appointment at the Center for Advanced Reproductive Medicine within the University of Kansas Health System. And we met with fertility specialists. We did emergency IVF right before I started my first plan of chemo. I decided to go with the University of Kansas Cancer Center, and Dr. Khan put me on the chemos that are best with triple negative breast cancer, that kill it right on the spot. Taxotere and carboplatin were the chemos that I took, and within the first chemo, the tumor, I couldn't even feel it anymore. And so I have the BRCA1 mutation. I got it from my father, and so we found out through all this, through genetic testing, that I have the BRCA1 mutation. So I did have to have a bilateral mastectomy after I was done with my chemo. And I'm also currently being monitored for ovarian cancer. I go every 6 months for screening. September 2015, we celebrated being cancer-free for 1 year, and we took a big trip to Italy. And when we came home, about a month later, we found out I was pregnant with our second baby. So it was kind of a big surprise and a blessing, because we didn't know if I would be able to have another baby naturally. And I ended up being able to. So it was just a big surprise. Instantly, the first thing when they told me that I thought about was my son that I had just had. He was 5 months at the time, and that's instantly the first thing I thought about is, oh my God, this baby needs a mom. And that's kind of all I thought about the whole time, was like, I can't go anywhere because he needs a mom. Instantly, right after I told my mom, she's very, how would you describe her? She's very
hands-on.
Hands-on, and she's very, what is the word? Regiment, or she's very efficient, and she's on top of things, and she's a planner. And so when I told her, I mean, the first thing she said was, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get through this, and I'm gonna figure this out. And so, I mean, she, within hours of telling her, had gotten into her network of all the women that she knows that have had breast cancer. And when I saw her, like the next day, she had printed out all this information from the University of Kansas Cancer Center's website, and which doctors we needed to call and what we needed to do. And so, I mean, she instantly was like, there was no question she wanted me to go there for a second opinion. And I, at the time, was still kind of hazy and just kind of like, well, whatever, that's fine. But to me, science is science. At the time, I thought, okay, I have breast cancer. Millions of women get breast cancer. Millions of women survive. Science is science. If there's been a cure for cancer, every doctor that works on cancer would know this. I didn't at the time understand the difference between an academic medical center and a hospital, and that different doctors do have access to different information and science. I had no idea. I would have thought that there's just, here's how you treat breast cancer. I thought there was one kind of breast cancer. I didn't understand there's different types. And so, I mean, kind of learning through the journey of cancer, you learn all of that. But at the time, I had no idea. And so I was really surprised when Dr. Khan said that it was triple negative breast cancer and that there was a difference in the diagnosis, because I thought, I don't understand. How do you not just look at a pathology report and it's clear? Just like, oh, you broke your arm. You know, I didn't understand that. And I was kind of nervous for a while because I didn't understand how two different doctors could see the same thing and have a different diagnosis.
It's certainly, you know, shocking and scary. I think what helped us, and with the in vitro component, it really, you know, gave us, we really didn't have a lot, we kind of had to turn things around really quickly. And what was nice about, after meeting with Dr. Khan and kind of getting a plan together, is it seemed like KU Med really had a plan ready, and they always made, throughout the entire sequence, it was kind of, you know, it seemed like we were in good hands because there was a really good plan in place that made us feel comfortable. We never really had questions on, oh, you know, what happens next. It was kind of laid out, and I think that helped a lot. We had a really good feeling with the, maybe the first consultation. It just went really well, and it was very, there were no questions on their end on what we needed to do, and I think that helped. You could kind of feel that they were confident in their plan, and that made us feel confident going forward.
They had told us, Dr. Khan had said, is that triple negative breast cancer is aggressive, but if you catch it early, it's really good because it reacts to chemo really well and responds typically really well. So the good news is, at the time we didn't know, but the good news is that we did catch it early, and so, I mean, that was good. And another thing was, he had said in our first consultation that he sees patients with triple negative breast cancer all the time, and it's not new or different or hard. It's kind of like easy peasy, do this. I know how to fix you. So it was good. It's amazing. I think I've said to him before too, I wonder if every mom is so excited. Like, all I think about too, I can't wait to see them get married. And I'm sure every mom is like that, but I wonder if every mom is like, oh my God, when you have a 3-year-old, I'm gonna see my son get married. I'm gonna see him graduate high school. I'm gonna see him go to kindergarten. I think about that stuff all the time. Like, and I'm sure every mom has those same feelings, but it's like, I really am so happy. There hasn't really been that many milestones yet, but I know that I'm gonna be there at the weddings, and I'm gonna be there for everything. And it makes kind of even, you know, tantrums, and it's hard when you're in the middle of 2 little bitty kids, and you do, you know, if you lose your patience or you're really tired or whatever it is, a lot of times I just remind myself, oh my gosh, it is 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'm here holding this little baby, and it's just the best thing in the world.
You know, looking back, I can't even remember it because it was, you know, you have a new child, and then your wife's going through all this hardship, and you just, you know, you're thankful for the support system, family, friends, and, you know, the support system at the hospital that, you know, got us through it and got us through unscathed for the most part. Yeah, I just, you know, it was kind of a fog, but now we just have you know, it's like nothing happened. I mean, it's just moving forward, and that's nice.
Yeah, and sometimes I kind of can't believe it seems like it was a long time ago, because so much has happened in not a lot of time. And I mean, and that was, you know, I had my surgery in October of 2014, so that really wasn't that long ago, but it feels like so long ago, because then we've had another pregnancy and another baby, and when you have little ones, you're kind of just all, you know, go all the time. So I kind of feels like it was longer ago than it really was. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like, whoa. We had, I mean, it was incredible. and I had never really been in hospitals other than having the first baby. I had no experience with healthcare or, you know, being sick, but it was just incredible how well everyone took care of us. Like Brian was saying, I mean, every question was answered. It was just so organized. It was kind of unbelievable how organized and efficient and helpful and smart everything was. Nothing fell through the cracks. And my mom, like I said, who is very, she's very type A, and she's very like, she can always, we go to a restaurant and she can always list off all the things that would make it better and how it could be more efficient. And I mean, she had not a bad thing to say the whole time. I mean, she was impressed with the care and our team, and I mean, I feel like that says a lot. Yeah. But it was incredible. And even just the facilities, like if you were just from going from one to the other, how nice the facilities were and how just everything just was top notch. It really was. And it kind of, I mean, it wasn't an enjoyable experience by any means, but it was kind of like the best, I think, experience you could have. I mean, it really was so positive, and everyone was so nice and helpful and warm. I felt like just because everyone was so smart too, and that it just felt like I was in really good hands. I didn't question, have any like uncertainties or questions. It just made me kind of feel like, okay, I have, and they gave us like, here's your plan, and I have, okay, we've got to get through this, and once I get there, then we'll see what happens next. And it's kind of like I had this very easy path that I was going down, and lots of help along the way, and lots of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it sort of felt like we were in the hands of the best.
And I think aesthetics do matter. I think, you know, KU Med was just so, it wasn't delightful going through the experience, but it's better, you know, having an interesting architectural layout and interesting things to look at, and bright, sort of a bright hallway to go down with lots of natural light, rather than some dank corridor that's dimly lit. You know, that stuff adds up when you're going through a challenge like that. So, you know, I think architecturally, design-wise, I mean, you have to give some credit to whoever did that, because, you know, it does add up, just the little things.
It was pretty awesome. Within our first appointment with Dr. Khan, that was one of the questions he asked early on was, do you want to have another baby? And while we hadn't thought about it yet, it's pretty amazing that that was one of the first questions. And then we instantly the next day went to see the fertility specialist, where I got our first assessment or my first appointments, that was never brought up. Nobody asked about, you know, the future. And I just knew that I was going to, if I went there, I was going to have to be on medications for 5 to 10 years after treatment, and it was a longer treatment. That was pretty incredible that was something that they thought about, was life after cancer, when we were there just in a fog of total uncertainty. And so that helped kind of, I think, ease things a little bit too. At that point, I don't even think I could even think past that appointment. And they were already thinking about, once, you know, I'm cancer-free and, you know, ready for more kids. I didn't even think that was possible. I was just wanting to be alive for the one that we just had, so.
It was a grueling process, but it just, you know, we got through it with the help of, you know, just a really supportive team there, and I think, like Leslie said, just very intelligent folks who led us to believe we were in the right hands.
You're gonna look at the trains. You got lipstick on you. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Should we go look? Should we go look and see?
No,
Yeah, let's go look.
Oh, yeah.
This is Hanny.
Oh, Freddie has Percy. Is this Percy? Is that Percy? Yeah, you want to show? You chewing on your sock?
Right there. Your big dump truck.
Are you chewing on your sock? Yeah. And see, I know how to make you smile too. You say, fatty cake, baker's man. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. Roll it, pat it, mark it with an F, and put it in the oven for Frankie and Freddie. Yay! Yay! Yes. Let's see, can you walk? Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm a big man. Oh. Yes. Yes. See, I'm a big man. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Come here, Frank. Or Fred. Whichever.
Oh. Yes. Oh, snotty, drooly boy. And it's kind of funny. I don't know if you can see. He's growing in his teeth like a vampire. Are you a vampire, baby? Are you a vampire? Yes. 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 Hmm?
Here, make him go the other way. There you go.
What's out? What's out?
Start the engine.
There he goes.
He forgot a train.
He forgot a train.
Why did he forgot a train? Nice.
Yeah. Oh, he lost it again.
It's pretty neat that James gets to be on video, isn't it?
Come over here and let Freddie see too.
Stop that! I don't want him
Oh,
to.
let's be nice.
He will choke on
He
Dave.
said he will choke on James. Here, let's let Freddie. Let's put that back up there. Maybe we can find a toy that Freddie can play with.
Hey, what is that?
Oh, he's stuck.
Why? Why was he stuck?
I
Hey
don't
Frank,
know.
why don't you get on this big Frankie feet or Freddie Fifi,
Look, Freddie likes the train.
and Freddie can get on there. Isn't that neat?
You say woohoo! Woohoo!
Hey, why is that coin stuck in the middle?
Don't you remember?
I don't know.
Santa.
Why did Santa bring me?
No, I don't want you to fall either. Here, go like this.
Poo poo papa.
Oh, okay.
Papa.
Oh, you know what we could do? Let's do jelly beans, popcorn, licorice too. Whoa!
Stop that!
Oh, you don't want Freddie to sit on it?
No. Did you sit him up in my bed
Sure.
so I can hide?
So you can
You
hide
wanna
from the
hide?
camera.
Where's Frankie? He was just in here. Where'd he
I
go?
think the camera found him.
Papa?
Freddie, You say, huh? You show your vampire teeth? You want to show your vampire teeth? You're lost.
I think we found you. I think we found you.
Oh, yes, sir.
Stop that!
Can you show Mickey?
Show me Mickey.
So her stuff could be in there actually.
No, we actually have a freezer desiccated just for her.
That's the one that you showed me.
So while they're doing the one for the blood is in the folder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like when they're doing high cutting and stuff, they'll have boxes in here that they use just because it's right here, and then
Right.
they all just kind of get shuffled to there. So they have their own storage unit. So processing and storage.
Okay, cool.
Lots of different little.
Well, and as I was explaining to her, because it's TV, they won't really explain anything, which is why it's kind of on me to make sure that we only use stuff that's accurate,
yeah.
that's not, doesn't require explanation, because they won't have time.
So there's no information on there, right?
Oh no, those are all empty.
Cool.
And do you have an email that you can send a picture of the slide?
Yes. In fact, do I have, no, I don't have a card with me. That'd be too easy to have a card with me. Too, I think you have a piece of paper all right on a post-it note.
time slot?
Yes, but I'll have to look at. Because she had a question this morning that had that information on it. 6 p.m. May 11th.
Cool.
And it'll also be on the website. So
What
she's,
network is this from?
KCTV5.
And I can open up a box.
Perfect. And whenever you're ready. Cool.
Good.
Yep. All right, cool. Thank you.
And then Cliff, I'm going to have him show us the other.
I think if you just like open up and just point to it, point the camera.
Sure. You're just trying to spread the love, aren't you?
Yep. I won't be on the video. Yeah.
Okay.
Mine is 17.3.
Yeah,
Make your
it's fun.
slushy cold fast. And just as an aside, these are the kinds of things that make it dangerous for us to have.
Dr. Sharma will be excited. She takes up so much real estate.
And we're hoping that they say Godwin Lab, so Dr. Godwin will be happy. Can't guarantee that, but we're hoping.